Ms. Aya, if you had to just talk about the developments that have taken place since June 30th, in the past 2 days, would you say the scale that we're seeing on the streets of Khartoum and 21 other cities across Sudan, would you say this is a surprise turnout considering the internet blackout that Sudan is seeing?
Absolutely. It is indeed a surprise turnout. Just to give the viewers a little bit of background, this brutality that you talk about on June 3rd, this happened on the main sit-in area in Khartoum. And this was essentially a traffic juncture that protesters had occupied since April 11th, since they overthrew Omar al-Bashir, and they had refused to leave this sit-in area basically until their demand for a civilian government was to be met. The military council had said a number of times that it was not tolerating what it called the chaos of the sit-in. I myself was in the sit-in area in early May, and it was, as far as I could tell, an extremely peaceful, organized protest. And then the crackdown on June 3rd came, and it was a surprise. I'm in touch with a lot of protesters that are still on the ground. It was a surprise, sort of brutal attack. Many of them even called it a massacre, with tents being burned, reports of men and women being raped in the violence. And since June 3rd, really, the protesters have been forced to go underground and have not been able to communicate with the outside world easily, but also not without each other, with each other. And the march on June 30th was definitely a surprise because of the scale of it. It showed that the protest movement still could galvanize these masses, even with an internet blackout, resorting to very traditional methods such as printed leaflets. I've seen many of these, or even going door to door instead of using hashtags, talking to each other. And for what is called the sort of the neighborhood committees that are in the different neighborhoods, working together to make sure that these different marches then met and actually for us to be able to see the images that we saw coming out of Khartoum and other towns around Sudan is quite a huge comeback, I would say, for the protest movement, and shows that despite of the crackdown, they still command the streets and they still are able to gather that many people.
And so far, there have been confirmed 11 deaths of the protesters on the hands of the military. Is there some kind of this coming in the way of as a form of deterrence to them? Is it demoralizing, or are the numbers just growing strong despite of this?
So basically, I mean, the military council, the military transitional council, the night before the planned protests came out, and in a statement very clearly said, you know, we blame the freedom, the forces of freedom and change, which is essentially an umbrella group for many opposition parties for any loss of life that happens on that day. The protesters, however, have maintained that they are peaceful, that they are unarmed. But my sense from the people that I'm speaking to on the ground that this is not really deterring them. In fact, I would say that between June 3rd and June 30th, I sensed more fear in the people that I spoke to than I did yesterday and today, because then it was a fear for losing the gains of what they call a revolution. And now that they were able to go out in the street and see each other, I would say that there's more confidence, and the violence is somehow making them more angry, more bitter, and more determined to remain on the streets. With that being said, the violence that we've seen in the past 2 days, of course, every loss of life is precious, has not been on a massive scale as we've seen in June 3rd. And certainly there are signs that the Transitional Military Council is capable of much more violence. So it's something that we have to keep watching.